The Financial Action Task Force, also known by its French name, Groupe d'Action Financière, is an intergovernmental organization founded in 1989 on the initiative of the G7 to develop policies to combat money laundering. In 2001, the purpose expanded to act on terrorism financing. It monitors countries' progress in implementing the FATF recommendations by a Euro peer reviews a Euro unregistered trademark of member countries. The FATF Secretariat is housed at the headquarters of the OECD in Paris. History. The Financial Action Task Force on Money Laundering was established during the 1989 G7 summit in Paris to combat the growing problem of money laundering. The task force was charged with studying money laundering trends, monitoring legislative, financial and law enforcement activities taken at the national and international level, reporting on compliance, and issuing recommendations and standards to combat money laundering. At the time of its creation, the organization had 16 original members. In its first year, the FATF issued a report containing 40 recommendations to more effectively fight money laundering. These standards were revised in 2003 to reflect evolving patterns and techniques in money laundering. The mandate of the organization was expanded to include terrorist financing following the September 11th terror attacks. The 40 recommendations and special recommendations on terrorism financing, the FATF's primary policies issued are the 40 recommendations on money laundering from 1990 and the 9 special recommendations on terrorism financing. Together, the 40 recommendation and special recommendations on terrorism financing set the international standard for anti-money laundering measures in combating the financing of terrorism and terrorist acts. They set out the principles for action and allow countries a measure of flexibility in implementing these principles according to their particular circumstances and constitutional frameworks. Both sets of FATF recommendations are intended to be implemented at the national level through legislation and other legally binding measures. The FATF completely revised the 40 recommendations in 1996 and 2003. The 2003 40 recommendations require states, among other things, to implement relevant international conventions, criminalize money laundering and enable authorities to confiscate the proceeds of money laundering, implement customer due diligence, record-keeping and suspicious transaction reporting requirements for financial institutions and designated non-financial businesses and professions, establish a financial intelligence unit to receive and disseminate suspicious transaction reports, and cooperate internationally in investigating and prosecuting money laundering. The FATF issued 8 special recommendations on terrorism financing in October 2001, following the September 11th terrorist attacks in the United States. Among the measures, a Euro-only special recommendation via Euro was targeted specifically at non-profit organizations.